Good evening. Welcome again. For those of you that were able to join us downstairs for the reception. For those of you that I didn't have the pleasure of meeting, my name is Joe Fungi, and I have the opportunity to serve as the president of Missoula's Business Incubator, as well as the executive director of what's called Accelerate Montana. There's some cards in front of me to explain a little bit more about that. I also want to extend a warm welcome to all of you that are here as part of the third annual Energy Summit being hosted by Abe Kim and his team at the Mansfield Center. Welcome. And also to all guests, our speakers particularly, which we'll introduce here shortly. Thank you for making time to be here with us tonight. Just to give a little bit of a perspective on why it makes sense for Accelerate Montana to host tonight's event, which is really at the intersection of information technology and education, energy, things of that nature. Accelerate Montana is a group of professionals, students, and volunteers which serve Montana business. Particularly, that's about 700 businesses annually that are served, ranging from young entrepreneurs looking to start their business to people that are looking to do leadership development training, as well as international trade. And so you can see the plethora of organizations on the back of the card. I'll just briefly go through them. Blackstone Launchpad, which serves our sort of entrepreneurship base. The Small Business Development Center, which helps with business planning. The Montana Code School, which is a coding boot camp I'll talk about in a second. Montech, which is our technology-focused business incubator. PTAC, which helps to secure government contracts for business. The World Trade Center, obviously involved in international trade. And Montana iLead, which is leadership and executive education development. So members of the team that are here tonight, if you might just stand so we could recognize those folks, and Paul and Patty. So with that said, tonight is going to be a very enlightening discussion led by our good friend Alex Philp. Before we get to that, I want to highlight one of our programs, which I think really exemplifies sort of the topic of tonight. It's the Montana Code School. For those of you that are not familiar with code schools, these are basically 12-week crash course programs to develop software development skills. Basically creating junior developers, which are apparently just what the growing tech industry really needs. To put some statistics to that, in 2016, there were approximately 18,000 graduates of code schools in the United States. You compare that to computer science degrees, there were roughly 60,000 computer science degrees that were awarded in the previous year. So roughly 1/3 coming out of code school programs. There are approximately 100 full-time code schools that are in operation in our country today. And I want to say that we're very proud to have one of those code schools here in Missoula, as well as in Bozeman, called the Montana Code School. The Montana Code School was launched just about 18 months ago. And since then, it's had 100, or just under 100 people that have gone through that program. It touts a 95% job placement rate, with significant increase of wages for those folks that are coming in and going out of the program. Last year, we expanded to Bozeman, so we're running out of 2 locations and looking to expand further into the Pacific Northwest in 2017. Some of the companies that people are working for include ATG, Wisetail, Printing for Less, Elixidor, and many, many others. And so we're very, very proud of that program. I want to acknowledge the people that get all the credit. Amita Greer is not here tonight. She's our executive director. But it's also important to acknowledge Paul Gladen and Jen Stevens and Kai Hotzlettler, who I don't believe is here, who really were the brainchild behind getting this program off the ground. And so the tie-in, as I pivot toward our discussion tonight, is just the fact that if you think about code schools 3-4 years ago, they didn't really sort of exist, number one, let alone did they really have impact on every industry that really exists in the world today. So everything from making sure trains are on time, to making sure you're developing cutting-edge software, to technology that we see in our computers. It's everywhere. And so we're very proud to be in that game. And so we're also very proud to to be part of tonight's discussion. And to pivot to that, I'm going to serve as an introduction to our moderator, Alex Philp, and just as a little bit of protocol as to how tonight will go, we'll have our three panelists and Alex up front. Alex will begin with some questions, but I want to heavily encourage audience participation in terms of discussion. I don't want it to get to the last 5 minutes and then there'll be a bunch of questions. So let's make it as interactive. Please participate as we go through. Alex Philp is a proud Grizzly and has many, many things that we can put behind his name. He has extensive interdisciplinary experiences ranging from his early career working for U.S. Senator Brock Adams in the field of old growth forest policy, endangered species management, and constituent coordination. His UM School of Forestry PhD research in landscape ecology and economics evolved into working for NASA, Goddard Space Flight Center, and then as a UM program as assistant program director. From those experiences, he definitely pulled in the technology side, has been involved in many technology businesses since then, GCS being one of those, in which he has brought many sort of things to the table in terms of interactive web-based geospatial analytical systems, collaborations with IBM Research, and many, many other collaborations, including the U.S. government and Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies. All of that aside, Alex is the most energetic guy I know, and he is a very good friend and been a good friend since I arrived in Montana 5-6 years ago. So with that, Alex, I'm going to ask you and our three panelists to come up. Alex will handle the introductions from there, and again, welcome to our event tonight.
Thank you very much, Joe. Much appreciated. So it's a real honor to be here tonight and to be asked to moderate this panel discussion. We have a very distinguished group of gentlemen with us this evening. Some have been traveling. You're probably pushing 15 hours. You're 22, 21 hours. Chris drove over from the office. But we've got some real international stars and people that have done some remarkable work. As many of you have read, tonight we are here to discuss in general how information technology innovation is transforming things like industry, energy, and education. As classically Mansfield Center, Abe Kim's work, Matt Olson's work, these are very, very significant topics with a lot of latitude for discussion and room to grow. We're confident that all of you can address this hierarchy. I want to emphasize some subtext here under this very, very broad discussion. As was written, you're joining three top international leaders from IBM, Panasonic, Washington Corp. You'll hear about that more, to discuss how advancements in information communication technology, ICT, and the Internet of Things, IoT, are transforming energy management, industrial sectors, city management. And then there's just a range of questions that I'm going to ask these gentlemen tonight that'll stimulate the moderated portion, and then we're going to open it up, as Joe has asked, for at least 30 minutes here of Q&A, ending at 7:30. So my job is to try to keep us generally on track and make sure that we're winding up and facilitate the comments. I would ask the folks that are going to ask questions. I really will not tolerate just open-ended editorialization because time matters, and if you want to have those discussions, let's take them outside. Try to think about your question before you ask it, and let's try to be efficient there. And with our panelists, I would ask you, you've done many panels, I know, I would ask you to be considerate of your other panelists. Try to find a way to create a dialogue amongst each other so it's not stovepipe, stovepipe, stovepipe. It takes a little more work to do that, but I'd ask you to do that. And I believe also, are we going to do your video?
No.
We're not going to do your video.
No.
So Masato had a video, but we're not going to do that. So we're going to focus on our conversation tonight. So without further ado, it is an honor, as I mentioned, to introduce our panelists. And I'll try to do this very quickly, but there's so much here. First and foremost, Nick Donofrio has a most impressive, distinguished career at IBM Corporation. We're looking at least 44 years. He was retired as the executive vice president, and that was a very unique, almost singularly unique title at IBM Corporation in their 100-year history. I think you're the only person to ever hold that position. Two.
I was the second.
So that should tell you something. He also went on and had a storied career in 44 years there as an IBM Fellow, which is the most highly distinguished additional title. And the projects and the programs that he oversaw and funded is actually legendary in the industry. You may have heard of Watson. I don't want to steal too much thunder here, but this guy helped think it up and got the money to fund it, and it's transforming our world. So he knows a little bit about things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so Nick has a tremendous bio here. If I read this, I'd spend about 20 minutes. So if that's okay, I think I'm going to pause there, except I'm going to say that he has a passion for science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. I like to refer to STEAM education, not STEM. And we're very honored to have him here on the campus of the University of Montana, and he will be a significant participant in the Mansfield Asia-Montana Energy Summit that'll be occurring here for the next 3 or 4 days. So welcome, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our next panelist, Masato Nakamura, who is the General Manager and Director, International Department, Panasonic Corporation. In this case, Mr. Masato has been working for Panasonic since 1998. He has served as Vice President of Panasonic Russia, managed Panasonic Security Systems Division in different countries for many years, offering up many business units and various joint venture task force with leading manufacturers of security surveillance technologies in UK, US, and the European countries. He was in charge of pilot projects and biometric identification in the UK, targeting such things as immigration at Heathrow, driver's license registration, social ID recognition. These are all very topical areas of expertise on a global scale. Mr. Nakamura was a mentor for business development projects at RPI Incubation Center, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Did you not go to RPI?
I sure did. That's
really?
another good reason. Another good reason we're buddies.
And a mentor for Asahi Forum HR Development Strategy for Globalized Society, and a member of the advisory board for International University of Japan. Again, tremendous effort, flying and working and traveling for a day to be here. We're pushing 21, 22 hours. It's an extreme honor, sir, to have you here, and speaks again to the quality and the caliber of the individuals that are arriving here at the University of Montana. Finally, but certainly not lastly, I'm joined by a dear friend, Chris Warden. Chris is the Vice President of Technology at the Washington Companies. Chris has served in a service organization capacity in the business services for Washington Companies for many years. It's a group of privately held companies that do very well. Chris oversees IT infrastructure and IT strategy for all of the Washington companies, which is a significant activity. It's global in nature, and there's a lot of talent there. Chris is responsible for helping simplify, standardize, and source common business functions and providing each company with strategic advice on how to use technology to support and improve their business. Very clear, very direct. There's a lot of technology out there, and Chris's job with a multi-billion-dollar corporation is to figure out how to get the right hammer on the right nail versus trying to use other things to drive nails and things like that. And Chris is really good at it. Born and raised in Great Falls, Montana, Chris is a graduate of the University of Montana.
I am, thank you.
With a degree in business administration. That's the building right across the way. Prior to Washington companies, Chris worked for 15 years in Silicon Valley for companies in semiconductor, software, consulting, and venture capital industries. And again, Chris and I have known each other for a lot of years. I had a chance to work on some boards together, and it's also an extreme honor to welcome you here tonight. Thank you for being here. Okay, so again, really am honored to have this opportunity. What I would like to shift to now is approximately 45 minutes of moderator-driven conversation with the panelists. And I think I'm just going to launch into a fairly significant question that we've been working on, and it'll give you a chance to each answer and respond here. And I'm going to go with this question, and I'd like to hear from each panelist if possible versus raising your hands. So we're really going to dive into this world of artificial intelligence. I think it's one of the most powerful technologies out there today, but one of the most misunderstood. You'll hear commonly most people are worried about AI taking over the world. It's going to become self-conscious. It's going to kill us. You've got people running around making all sorts of interesting claims. You have people basically also talking about the end of jobs and automation. And most people don't know what it is, and they don't really know how they're using it, practically speaking. How is it impacting businesses, et cetera? So this is a big question. You can parse it any way you want, answer some particular point of it. So here it is. How is artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and sensor tech transforming industries? And what are your industries doing that you are excited about in this arena? And again, we're going to look to you as a distinguished fellow of IBM. I think you probably could speak for IBM as well as anybody. What is IBM thinking about these monsters, the convergence? What is Panasonic thinking about this? And Chris, of course, what is Washington Corp's thinking about this? So AI, big data, and how we're becoming an increasingly connected, wired world of devices talking devices, and what does that mean? So, Nick, I'll turn it over to you, please.
So thanks, Alex. I mean, you don't even know where to begin. The problem is so large. But artificial intelligence has been around for 50 years. I remember the first lecture I gave on artificial intelligence was to a bunch of high school students, and I know exactly when it was. It was when Michael Jackson's Moonwalk was the most popular thing around, because I had to actually do the Michael Jackson Moonwalk to get to the podium, because that's what the kids wanted me to do. They were all
Will you be doing that tonight?
I will not. I could. I've actually gotten better at it. The kids were petrified of that phraseology of artificial intelligence. I mean, so this, we're talking about, must have been 20, 25 years ago, would we say? That's about, not dating myself, but I think that's probably what we're talking about. So they were just petrified of that word, of that phraseology, and I said to them what I'm going to say to you. It doesn't exist if we don't make it exist. Whatever happens here with artificial intelligence, whatever happens with big data analytics, whatever happens with cognitive computing, that's the category that IBM has defined, by the way, cognitive computing. And we talked a little bit earlier, Chris, about this. IBM's pretty good at defining categories. I mean, they yes, Alex is right. I gave them the first $100 million to build Watson. First $100 million, by the way. It took $200 million to get Watson right, and I had left before they actually succeeded. It's just a codification of procedures and processes in a way that can be updated with real-time data input. All the things that most people neglect, artificial intelligence keeps. You've heard of metadata? The metadata turns out to be more important than the data. Meta is the on-the-way data. There's a lot of data that's created on the way getting to the data. That data is actually more important than sometimes the data itself. So we've known this for years, for many years in computer science. So people now have the capacity. They now have the computational capacity to do something with this. Then we have languages that are simple, that allow you to intercept all of this data and to start to anticipate and give you responses before you even ask. It's like, how did you know that? Well, we know that because we watched you. We've traced you for the last 5 years. And we know exactly what you do. When you do that, you do this. And therefore, we're going to use that and try to influence you. It doesn't end, my friends. It's been going on for a long time. I won't say forever, although it could, because machine learning is actually a more primitive version of artificial intelligence, and it's been going on forever, from the first computer that was ever made. It's just becoming more pedestrian. It's becoming more democratized, because technology and the way we put it to work, you see it now. It was always there. You never saw it. Now you see it. It doesn't end, because the technologies of the future are going to be orders of magnitude more powerful than the technologies of the past.
Okay, thank you. Masato.
Sure, okay. First of all, what I'm in charge, I'm in charge of international relations now, but just 6 months. But before that, I was in charge of just selling products. So I'm in charge of sales and marketing. So very, very practical man. So I'm not engaged in R&D at all. So this is very interesting subject, but what I can share with all the audience here, what Panasonic is focusing on. This is very practical things. Okay, IoT things, AI things, okay, whatever, going to happen, what is our DNA Panasonic has? What is our competence? And this is kind of like, okay, we are a manufacturing company. We have a very, very strong manufacturing capabilities and also engineering resources. And okay, mainly hardwares and probably partially middlewares, but not applications. So this is what we have, our asset and the resources. And how to utilize our assets and resources and to be adapted to the requirement from this trend, IoT trend or AI trend. So, for example, we have interesting challenges. The video which I tried to share today was actually Fujisawa Smart City Town, sustainable smart town.
We're going to talk about that next.
Yeah. So, but this is not conceptual. This is very practical, kind of like a solution for living solutions we are proposing and we are providing. For example, like a washing machine or cooking appliances or even air conditioners or even kind of like heaters. So we are manufacturing fuel cell, and then how to control all these devices by IoT. And not individual houses, but all the communities. In this town, 300 households are connected each other by internet. And also control center, security monitoring center can monitor the situation of each house. So this is Panasonic is trying to develop and try to think what we can offer to the people in this kind of like a requirement with our own expertise. So this is what we're doing. And for example, interesting, the products, rice cooker in Japan. Rice is kind of like your bread. It's very, very important, the day to day. But Japanese rice cooker now has a very, very intelligent functions. So depending on the different kinds of the rice, you can press a button. For example, like Akita Komachi, this is a rice from Akita prefectures, or maybe Koshihikari. This is a very well-known, high-quality Japanese rice produced in Niigata prefectures. So we have lots of different kinds of the rices in Japan, but our Panasonic rice cooker has a special program for each different rices. So this is kind of like maybe some people believe, okay, this is a gimmick, but it's not. Our engineers seriously thinking and change the kind of like pressures and temperatures, yeah, and then optimize the taste and the conditions of the steamed rice. Mm-hmm. This is also partially, AI, adaptation into our own kind of like a business. Mm-hmm. Also, another example, supplemental solutions for Blu-ray, probably you know, optical disc, so DVD and Blu-ray. And Panasonic is one of the producers, as well as Sony, and Sony and Panasonic has agreed standardizing the format of Blu-ray disc for the data archiving, long-term data archive. Very sorry to IBM, so this is not, this is
We
a
don't
big,
make those things
this
anymore.
is big challenge for the conventional kind of like technologies, hard disk drives or tapes, but optical disc, our argument is this is a very suitable technologies for the big data.
It's very stable as well.
Yep, and it's cold, so freeze. You don't have to switch on. Once you write the data, you can keep this disk forever,
Right.
almost 50 years,
Right.
and theoretically 100 years.
That's right.
And when you need to get the data from disk, you can just switch on. This is very much, you know, energy saving and intelligent. But this is also requirement for big data, you know, the time. So this is, you know, the Panasonic positions. What we can offer, okay, we are not leading AI or IoT, but we are doing what we can offer, you know, for this kind of like
You can adapt
requirement.
to it. You're
Yes.
adapting.
Yes.
You're adapting your.
This is us.
Perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
That's really good.
Chris,
Yeah, do you, I think that, just to kind of restate the question, I think what you said is you wanted to know how artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and sensor tech
Yep.
are transforming our businesses.
Yes.
And then what are we excited about?
Exactly.
Is that,
That's it.
well, maybe I'll answer the second one first. You know, with the Washington companies, I don't think we really get excited about technology. What we're excited about is delivering good services to our customers. And technology can very much be a part of that. But some of the ones that we've been talking about tonight, we utilize, and we're starting to utilize more, but they're distant because they're scary. Not really because they're scary. Like, I'll use artificial intelligence as a reason. You know, I don't think anybody at our companies is worried about the cyborgs taking over. It's a different kind of scary. It's that they don't understand it. Like, how is artificial intelligence, how can it drive better employee and customer experiences and business results for the companies? And so part of my job, before we can even really talk about technology, is to connect these innovations to what matters, and to also connect them to some trends that have been going on in business my whole life. And so if you guys would allow me to do that really quickly, I'll do that with the three things that Alex spoke about to the best I can. So big data analytics and sensor tech are two things that we are using widely through our businesses. Matter of fact, I can't really think of a business or a major process that hasn't been impacted by those technologies. If we look at those technologies, they're both extensions of things that have been going on for a long time. So if we were to really kind of ask ourselves, well, what does a business look for technology-wise? I think there's like 4 or 5 things that, to explain technology, you kind of have to level set in those first. And so the first is we use systems to run a business. And so that's kind of answers the question on how we operate. Throughout business history, we've also used different techniques to sense what's going on. And that is really how we sense things. The next area is really around kind of intelligence. Data analytics would fall into this. It's how you make decisions. And increasingly, it's how you make better decisions faster. And I won't get into the other layers, but those are kind of the ones that we're talking about right here. So we use sensor technology pretty deeply in every one of our businesses. So one of the businesses in Missoula that the Washington companies operates is Montana Rail Link. It's a regional railroad. And we use sensors to monitor where our trains are at. And we do it for all sorts of reasons. They can be safety reasons. They can be performance and efficiency reasons. But it's all around us being able to better manage what we're doing so that we can optimize the result for our customer and optimize the business profits. Artificial intelligence is really, for me, an extension of sensing technologies, and it's an extension of intelligence technologies that help us make decisions. And so let's talk about kind of analytics, because you mentioned that. You know, analytics have really developed over the last 15 years, where in our businesses, when I started, we really kind of looked 30 to 90 days in reverse. All of our processes were set up to report on what happened in those periods. We moved from that to really real-time gathering of data that led to predictive analytics, that have led to us being able to better understand what's going on, to build kind of algorithmic intelligence, similar to your rice cooking thing. When you talk about your rice cooking technology, I go, wow, that's part of that advance of automation, because that's part of your intellectual property, right? And that's part of the algorithmic value that you've built that's an extension of sensing and decision making. And artificial intelligence, for me, is just another step in that direction. Okay. But it's really the marrying of the two. They're marrying more and more. And when I was kind of talking about the different layers, there's another layer that I always think about, and it's how we serve our customers. And what's been happening in our businesses, and I think every business, is that businesses are being re-engineered from the outside in. And what I mean by that is what matters most is customer experience. And it doesn't matter if it's a retail business or a commercial business or a digital business or a traditional business like ours. We're slowly reorganizing everything we do from the outside in. And artificial intelligence will help us accelerate and do that, because in a new digital world where systems become how people deal with us, someday that's all they might know about us. I mean, our customers, we pride ourselves in our people, don't get me wrong, and I think that will always be part of the business, and probably the most important part of the business. But more and more in our lives, our interactions are through the technology that we deal with. And the more that technology can serve us and sense us to allow us to interact with a business, the more competitive you can be in not only serving the needs of your customers, but in the moment, you know, because a digital experience is all about winning over a customer in the moment, in every single moment matters. Okay. That those, if with artificial intelligence, you know, I think of Watson. If you build Watson as an interface to a customer service experience that is plugged into all of our data and all of our sensors, it can help not just serve a client by answering questions. It can help anticipate things they don't even need and help us take care of those. Does that make sense?
That does.
So that's really far out there, right?
No, it's good. It's good.
And my job is I don't live out there, right? I live closer to the practical things that we're doing today, but also trying to tie those things to what we're doing and looking at the incremental steps in those different areas I talked about, how we decide, how we sense, how we serve, and how we operate, and making those next leaps.
But you've always had an eye on the future so that you can practically bring it into your business units.
You have to.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if that helps.
No, that's fantastic. So I want to change subjects here, and I want to speed up the responses a little bit, if we may. So I'm going to challenge you guys to bring them down to a couple minutes, if possible. Yep. Lots of questions here, but I want to talk about cybersecurity a bit. Mm-hmm. So as we become increasingly interconnected, and we have smart devices and interconnected devices and so on, we generally assume and know that we are also exposing ourselves to new vulnerabilities. 3 months ago, there was a significant hack that went through the IP addresses and of PTC cameras, and so malware is able to be more distributed than ever, and there's a lot more vulnerabilities than ever. As we become more wired, there's more points of attack, the surface attack. What I'd like each of you to address, not maybe so much in terms of your own businesses, in the case, but think about as we become more interconnected, we become we build a smart city, we build a smarter planet. Everything, your refrigerator is communicating to the store, is communicating to the rice cooker, is communicating to the farm. How is Panasonic, how was IBM, and is IBM, and what do you think about cybersecurity? So we'll start again with you, Nick, and talk a little bit about cybersecurity and what can we do practically, and what's the future look like there?
Okay, so
Thank you.
number one, I tried to say this earlier. I don't know if you're getting my point. Technology is enabling all this to happen. We've created the technology. We're the people that are making these problems. We're the people creating artificial intelligence. We're the people creating the data. We're the people creating cyber issues. Do you understand that? If there was no IT, if there were no IT, was no IT, there would be no cybersecurity problem. Period. End of story. It's an IT problem that we've created. You can exacerbate it by writing lousy applications and having bad practices, or you can actually attenuate it by doing a much better job of understanding the applications that you're writing. You get a choice every time you put a rice cooker online, or GE puts their digital twin strategy to work and puts their locomotives online, or puts their jet engines online, or their MRI. You get a choice as to how to do that. You do. Nobody else. The hackers are just smart IT people who know how lazy you are. And they're going to inexhaustively stay there, pounding away at you over and over again until they find that one moment of time when you've made a mistake, and in they go. Am I making myself clear to all of you?
Remember, we're going to have a lot of time. I'm going to try to reserve a lot of time for the Q&A. So he's really hit a point home. Masato, what are you guys worried about at Panasonic on this?
Yeah, sure. This is just coincidence, but if you allow me, I just had a meeting with a business lunch with kind of like a representative of the United States in Japan, Mr. Highland. He's now kind of like substitutes for the ambassadors of the United States in Japan. And this is the same question he gave me. And honestly speaking, I didn't know much about, the detail, what Panasonic is doing that. Details. I know Panasonic is concerned and doing something like R&D and in the CTO office. And this is my homework to Mr. Highland. So this is my situation. I have to complete my homework. But I know because rice cookers, refrigerators, or even security cameras are connected to the network. And in a couple of years ago, we had big issues because our customers, the customers using Panasonic cameras, they are, of course, kind of like they have hacking problems. Mm-hmm. And then immediately we found out, that we put some special kind of like encryption, like a code into our cameras. So this is day-by-day issues. And then our company is working on the headquarters space, and then making some policies, what kind of like encryptions, what kind of like a policy which we should build, and to share this policy with all our customers and clients. And this is a situation. And also we are working with a couple of export companies, outside of Panasonic, outside of Japan. This is a situation of Panasonic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you got your homework cut out for you, and assignments coming everywhere. Chris, what's your impression of the threat, and how does it bother you? What are you doing about it?
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest threats we face. We want to safeguard our employees and our customers and all the people in the communities we serve. And so the thought that someone would use technology to harm someone, particularly as sensors and technology get more embedded into operations, that's more and more possible. I mean, soon we'll have them embedded into our cars and public transportation and all sorts of things where the risks and stakes are higher. But even though I think it's important, I kind of think about it, I think maybe the same way Nick does, even though we didn't speak at all about this before the panel. I do think that as things become more important, we rise to the occasion and make them more secure. And so I do think a lot of people in the technology sector, particularly analysts and salespeople, like to use those things to just scare you, and you should be scared, but it's a little irrational.
Okay.
And, it can have people lose focus on maybe what are even bigger risks than that.
Okay.
Or buy their stuff. More
Or buy their stuff.
More likely than not, that's what they want you to
Yeah.
do.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yes, a big concern, but
Yeah.
there's bigger ones out there.
All right, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to ask one more question, and then this time is going quickly, but I'm going to start with Masato, and then I'm going to go to Chris, and I want to end with Nick. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to really give your opinion. What I'm interested in about a minute, minute and a half, what are you most excited about in the future regarding technology? You can describe it as disruptive, you don't have to use that language, but I know you said you don't get excited about technology, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit to
I'll get
be
excited.
excited about technology. And I want to lead with that before we go into the Q&A, because I want the people in the audience to be thinking about, things you would want to know about. And this can be near horizon. I know you guys do a lot of projection work. It can be near, long horizon. I want to know about that. So Masato, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Chris, and then we'll end with Nick.
What I'm excited about,
Please,
the
yes.
future
Yes.
technologies.
Yes.
Okay, first, the electric vehicles. And of course, probably the Panasonic is making a big investment into the United States, and with our business partner Tesla. So we just started building the Gigafactory with them, and also solar factory as well. And we continue this investment, and because of the demand continue to increase. And also we have a business partner, electric vehicles in China, and definitely China because of the air pollution issues. And Chinese governments start taking strong initiative to push electric vehicles more, and first replacing the public bus. And 2 weeks ago, big delegation came to Osaka, and I learned, the Shenzhen city, they're going to replace 20,000 buses by electric vehicles within this year. So this is
Within this year.
this year, 20,000. All the city bus.
So you're
Electric.
excited about the technology associated with electrical vehicles and the implications it's going to have on our
Exactly,
society.
exactly. And this is also important, business interests as well as environment. This is very, very important. And this is also one of the issues because green trade issues, probably, I don't know how many people knows this, and the US government has been taking initiative and for free trade of environmental goods, including electric vehicles, including lithium-ion batteries, etc., etc., etc. And in the U.S. government, EU, Japan, Korea, and China, Australia, New Zealand, 147 countries has been negotiating under the WTO. So this is also very important, and this is the reason why I'm so excited.
Good.
And I never give up, for this negotiation, and I'm expecting, that U.S. government or maybe U.S. Industrial coalition push your government
Yeah.
to accelerate these
It's a
negotiations.
very dynamic time
Yeah.
over here in the U.S. That's all I'll say. Chris, about a minute and a half. What
So
are
some
you
of the
excited
things
about?
I'm really excited about, business technology isn't nearly as exciting as consumer technology is. And we're behind consumer technology. Usually things are pioneered in consumer technology first. But I'm excited about sensors. I'm excited about artificial intelligence. Sensors, I don't know if you guys have automated homes, but the more we look at automating, monitoring, and having sensors to control all of our production facilities, whether it's a mine or a construction site or a transportation depot or any of those different things, that I get excited about that because you can use that data to improve efficiencies and improve service. And so those very simple things that we're experiencing in our homes are coming into business, and they're creating huge opportunities to still differentiate, particularly in traditional businesses like ours. So that's
Fantastic.
what. Yeah.
So we're thinking sensors and all that. Nick, what,
Not to be a bummer here, but I'm most excited about the end of the silicon era. And it's going to happen in our lifetime. I've had the benefit of watching the end of vacuum tubes, ferrite cores, single transistors, and silicon, the way you understand it, comes to an end at a 1 nanometer node. There's only like 2 electrons, and you need more than 2 electrons to actually make a predictable system. That is going to be absolutely interesting, intriguing, mind-blowing, but energizing. So it could give rise to photons, it could give rise to magnetics.
biologics?
Yes, but I put them at the back of the list, to be honest with you. I think I'm more excited about the mixture of magnetics and photons. And by the way, that will move us right along that Kurzweil curve for the next 50 years. So somebody else will be sitting in this room talking about the end of whatever that era is going to be called.
Nick,
That is something you should watch for.
Nick, when's your time horizon?
I give it 20 years at the most, more likely 15. More likely 15.
Okay.
Doesn't mean the semiconductor industry goes out of business. Don't short the stock. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it has to go through a huge transformation. And always remember, there's more than one way to move energy around. And it's the people who haven't forgotten that who are going to be probably the more popular people.
So a few years ago, when IBM was raising the concern about 17 nanometer barrier, then they got
Yeah.
to 15 nanometer barrier, and they keep going smaller, you're just taking it to the theoretical limit of,
One is the answer. I mean, those barriers were more photolithographic barriers.
Right, but
We
they were
can't print
real.
we can't print the image.
right,
You could always make the physics work
right.
if you could print the image.
Okay.
But I'm telling you that when you get to 1 nanometer, there's no image, even if you can print it. There's just
Understood.
nothing there.
Understood. Wonderful. I don't see that as negative. I see that as being actually ushering in the next wave. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for that. Those are 3 really broad, but also sort of unpacking questions to get the audience going here and stimulated. We have at least 25, 27 minutes for Q&A associated here with this audience. So now we've devoted a ton of time to this. Don't let me down. This is big setup for the audience members to ask questions. Martin, you're leaving.
He's got something to do.
What? What'd you say?
This is good stuff.
This is good stuff. Thank you. Are you going to write a good article about it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We can all hear each other, but please speak up. First question from anybody, please. Yes, sir.
I'm Rob Smith from the Computer Science Department here. Thank you for being here and for traveling. My question is, we're facing this tension between demand for people who have computer science skills, I won't say strictly computer scientists. Code School is a nice solution, partial solution. In Montana, for example, in the last year, there have been over 900 new high-tech jobs that have opened. Nationwide, by 2020, we're looking at a shortfall of 1 million. So what is the solution? Particularly, I'm speaking from a policy and top-down perspective, not necessarily bottom-up. We get a lot of students who are interested. The department's doubled in the last 5 years without really trying. We're more worried about the top-down problem of getting resources to expand.
So you're asking a question of how do we meet demand?
Yes.
Okay, you guys understand the question?
I sure do.
Okay, can you give a relatively succinct answer so we can try to get as much participation as
Yeah,
possible?
but
Thanks, Nick.
yes, I'm happy to give it a crack. Rob, is that you? Rob, thank you. So look, number one, you don't want to just build people who can do one thing. I'm not slamming the code or coding school. I don't know enough about it. But could I ask you to kind of remember that the real people that you want, if you're going to educate them in college, are T-shaped people.
Yes.
People who are broad and deep. They're going to be the innovators, they're going to be the leaders. Now, you may be talking about the shortage of actually not engineering skills. They may be technical skills. They may be technician skills. And we do a lousy job in this country of rewarding people who fill those technical jobs. Maybe Wyoming can do, or maybe Montana, or maybe South Dakota, because you have a whole bunch of different things going on in this part of the world. Maybe you could do a better job of defining that for yourself and creating somewhat of an industrial policy for your state that would say, you know what, we're changing the workflow here. We're not going to have engineers doing this work. We're going to have technicians doing this work, well-trained technicians. That might be something you want to think about. I guarantee you, you will get these people faster that way, and they'll be better served for the task that you're putting them up against. Does that make sense to you?
Masato.
I think that's a good answer.
You're good with that answer?
Yeah.
T-shaped, developing T-shaped individuals?
No. Actually, I'm now, in a position to keep receiving, the kind of like offer from IT resources from different countries, from all over the world. Today is Hungary, tomorrow is India, next day Israeli, and day before yesterday Australia. This is what day to day happening around me. Right. So I don't know. This is the answer to you, but probably I think government initiative. It's a national level or regional level. I don't know. That government initiative is very, very important to promote. To promote their own resources or to look for and business matching, and I think this is very important.
Thank you. That's good. Masato. Excuse me, Chris.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that business and government can get more involved to create programs to help address specific technical shortages. But I would agree with Nick that in our business, I don't think that's the biggest resource that we're lacking.
What are you lacking? What's the biggest thing you're lacking?
Yeah, I would say that the two things that I think we need to see more of is cognitive diversity and emotional intelligence, which yeah, it is. It's T-shaped. Although I don't know that most universities have that in their T. Right, I'd like to see universities do more of those.
Who's here
two
from the
things.
University of Montana?
Oh.
Okay, so maybe take a note. might want to work that into your curriculum.
By the way, there is a movement called the T-shaped higher education movement.
Yes.
I'm not just blowing smoke at you. It actually does exist. You ought to take a look at it.
Can I say one more thing on
You
this?
may.
So when I talk about cognitive diversity, I'm talking about the diversity that we know about. I'm talking about cultural diversity, racial diversity,
Sure.
experiential diversity. But more so, I'm talking about diversity in how people think. And that's what I see a shortage of. It's nice to see more of the other diversity. That's important. But we should allow that to bring to us more cognitive diversity. And I see a gentrification of thought. And then the emotional intelligence side, they come hand in hand.
Okay.
You can't innovate without knowing how to transform something that's going to be disruptive. And I almost hate the word disruptive. People use it like it's something you should do in the workplace. Like, hey, particularly millennials, and I don't want to pick on one generation or another because mine has its limits too. But I think some people think, hey, my job to be effective here is to disrupt something. And in a business that you're trying to change, your job is to be part of a team. And disruption is part of it, but I'd like to think of it more as functional change. And what that requires is people being allowed to express themselves and see differently, but with that, a unity of purpose.
Yeah.
And without the two, you can't innovate,
That's a
from
good
my
point.
point of view.
That's a-
And so
that's a good
more learning around how to do that as an individual and a group and a culture, I think would be fantastic.
Thank you, Chris. One thing I want to point out, about 7 years ago when there was a big rush to push towards technical skills in programming, with various languages of choice being considered, I was working with IBM Research on a project, and they had written an autocompiler that was writing a couple 100,000 lines of Java code in 3 seconds, and replacing and eliminating the need to be a Java programmer. I came back to U of M and I was like looking at the curriculum. So we were teaching curriculum that was actually going to be, to some extent, outmoded, outdated. And the two worlds didn't even know that was happening. You'll also see a lot of work right now, and there's some articles on this, where we have machine AI is actually figuring out how to grab code from lots of different sources and auto-compile code specific to different functions. So I always temper, don't get me wrong, I'm the first guy to like people that can write some code. I've been messing around with Python lately, pathetically. But the fact is, don't get the kids or the students completely sold on that for various reasons we can take offline. But great question. Thank you for that. You had a question here, and then we'll go back there. So, sir.
Yeah, it's sort of similar, has more thinking on the younger end. If you have kids or grandkids that have geeky tendencies and they're probably going to end up in a technology career, what would you like to see them learning and understanding in order for them to be able to build the technology?
Okay, good, great, good, clear question. We'll start with Chris and work our way back here to Nick.
Yeah, I got distracted because my Nest smoke alarm is saying there's smoke in the kitchen. Talk about. But it also just said alarm silenced, and I'm hoping that's my wife.
Actually, it was me, Chris.
So what was the question again? I got distracted by my sensing technology.
The question was, that's fantastic. The question
It's pretty funny.
from the
Somebody
gentleman
help me out.
is, having kids and looking at the next generation and why are we educating, what would be the types of skills and things that you would hope the emergent generation would know in order to be effective as we address this brave frontier, correct?
Yep.
Something to that effect?
Yeah. So I might
Again,
go
condensed.
deepen those two things that I mentioned before, which is cognitive diversity and emotional intelligence. Is one of the things I'm missing right now is people are just way too easily offended, and that can be a barrier to innovation. And I'm not talking about things that are truly offensive, right? I think it's important. Part of what we learn with cultural and cognitive diversity is also to know that our words matter and they matter to people, and that we have to be sensible about how we do that. So there's some emotional intelligence that is really involved in that. But if we're worried about how we might offend someone, it puts limits on what we would talk about and therefore what we could design together.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'd like to see us kind of roll back some ways the culture has gone in that direction that I think are limiting to innovation.
So I'm going to just speak to that for a moment. You brought it up earlier, and I see this in all the people I hire. They're having a hard time communicating, interacting with other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So your team approach, the innovation approach, the exchange approach, the whole notion of dialecticos,
Yes.
the Greek word for inspiration and how we communicate.
Yes.
These are things that aren't being taught enough. So I would always be encouraging the university at the graduate, undergraduate level to be doing seminars, to be doing team learning, get people figuring out how to work together to solve problems, because every single company is going to want, they don't want superstar individual people that are off in a corner. They want the emotional and intelligent skills to work together is
That's
a
right.
summary.
Yes.
Where if
Yeah.
AI might take an individual's job, it's going to be harder for AI to do the work of the team.
Yeah, AI is not going to take over in the area of idea generation and creativity. The single greatest scarce commodity is the generation, in my opinion, of the unique solution idea to the problem. That is not just an individualistic effort anymore. It's requiring an interdisciplinary approach, and people need to be comfortable with those teams, and you have to have some emotional intelligence to do that. Okay, so Masato, can you unpack this a little bit more for the gentleman?
Yeah, sure. Very interesting question and very interesting point. And I totally agree. So from my, not company's perspective, but my own individual personal perspective, so liberal art is very important. And school put more kind of like a focus on liberal art in their education program. And for example, I spent 6 years in Russia until last October. So it's kind of like a maybe unique background in this, the auditorium. But I realized, that Russia has such a great history, rich history and rich art or culture, asset, but they do not use this unlikely, Soviet government used to be using this, culture, rich culture asset for their communication with international society. And when I was 15 years in Tokyo, I was so much inspired by one of Russian arts, that came to Tokyo. And I didn't intend to go on and work and spend 6 years, at this age. But anyway, this is, kind of like as a base of the motivation, the working or negotiation or communications. I think this is very, very important to understand, to feel, what they have, what other people have. So this is, I think, the same issue, how to work as a team, not individually. Okay, different people, different kind of like a background, different nationality, different, the religious background, etc. So once people, kind of like children have more opportunities to learn, to know each other, and from liberal arts, and I think it will help.
Perfect. Nick?
So I'm going to go in a different way. I don't argue with that. I'm going to leave it there. If you really want to learn, if you want to read about this, I suggest you go back to the Spellings Commission that I was fortunate enough to have worked on. You can still get it from the council or from the Department of Education's website. It's called problem-based learning. There are a lot of great experiments with grade schools, middle schools, who have converted their systems completely over to a problem-based learning methodology. You might want to look at that yourself and read about it. I highly recommend it. It's a very thoughtful approach to trying to build the better citizen for the 21st century.
Comment on that. I have a luxury right now of working with some of the 3 top undergrad math students at the University of Montana and 1 master's level student. We worked on a project-based learning, and we brought them into one of our companies and gave it to them. The kids are brilliant. I mean, they're doing statistics that are off the charts, and it's incredible. I'd hire them all right now if I had the funding. But where they're struggling, and they'll get there, this is part of the educational process, they cannot summarize their findings and their results in a concrete English way for executives in order to make decisions. So they're doing incredible work, but no one is teaching them how to translate it into actionable intelligence. And sometimes as mathematicians, you need to be able to do that. Yes, there's academic publication, but there's also how to integrate and effectively bring that together. And they're doing work individually, but they're trying to come together as a team. So great question. Now, I want to do something real quick, Professor Tangendahl, and go over to this side of the room, and then I'm going to come back to this side of the room. I want to know what the problem is over here. Okay, question right there. And then we'll go to you, and then we'll come back to you, Professor Tangendahl. Go ahead.
So Matt Riley from the University of Montana.
And can you say who you are, what you do?
I'm the Chief Information Officer here.
The CIO.
I just have a question about where do we draw the line with cognitive computing and predictive human behavior? And an example is student predictive analytics. So I'd love to hear what the panel has to say about that.
So, let me get started. I mean, look, those are very important decisions, but they're really you and the faculty and the policy of the university. It's going to happen. You have to decide what to do with it. It just is, you could fix cyber if you wanted to. I mean, you really could, The federal government's no better protected than anybody else, but yet the real secrets never get broken into. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody will ever get the real secrets. You have to start to think about the gradations of either data or analytics, and you have to start to put policies in place because the technology is going to be there and you can't stop it. You're not going to outlaw it. And you got to get ahead of it now, build a culture that says what you stand for, what you respect, where you won't cross the line. If you don't do that now, it's too late then.
I'm going to leave it at that. I think I want to go on for a few more questions. Thank you for taking that. You guys can chime in on that later. Right behind, Eric.
Yes, Eric Franzen with Smart Data Consultants here in Missoula. Over the last 25 years, we've watched the World Wide Web turn into what I would argue is the largest, most accessible store of human knowledge ever. As you look at IoT, ICT, what do you see as the role of standards? What role does standards play? And particularly, how do you see them playing within the corporate environment?
I'm going to have Chris take that one.
Oh, wow. You know, I think standards are pretty important because, you know, more and more companies don't just have a few pieces of software, a few platforms kind of running the business. Those days are over. I still work with a lot of people who fantasize about that. And part of what I have to tell them is we're not returning to that era, but this mesh of different systems and services is really the future. And so the ability to, from a business point of view, to standardize on how systems manage data and communicate and integrate is critical. There are a lot of good standards there already. And they tend to get beefed up to where we need them as the technology and the services grow to maturity. And it's part of the evolution of anything new. But in my book, the world's pretty good at this. It takes time, though, but it's critical. Otherwise, and we got to get faster at getting there, which I think industry does. But
I think you have to decide whether things like this, which are totally proprietary, belong in your world. That's the decision you're going to be faced with. Because the standards are going to have to be open to be truly of value to you, and they're going to have to be international. Does this fit that bill?
Great challenge. I'm going to go to Professor Tangendahl, then I'm going to come to that gentleman, and then I'm going to go to you. So we're going to have to pick up the pace here a bit.
We got three to go.
Professor Tangendahl.
Lee Tangendahl, Management Information Systems Department in the School of Business. Presently in the United States, manufacturing jobs are going down, regardless of what Donald Trump said. But manufacturing productivity is going up. So you guys, with all your technology, is getting more produced with fewer people. What are you going to do for those people that need a job? What are some examples of where those new jobs are going to come from? Or what are some examples of some jobs that are going to go away?
You want to? So Nick's going to go, then I want Masato to address this too.
So, I mean, we have a whole volume of information that I encourage you to read. It's on the National Academies of Engineering website. I chaired an effort called Making Value for America, embracing the future of manufacturing, technology, and work. It actually clearly spells out what you need to do, what the problems are. There'll be a second study that the Academy is going to kick off in 3 or 4 weeks. If you'd like to be part of that study, please speak up. You couldn't be talking about a more serious problem as far as I'm concerned. You know, the fact of the matter is technology isn't to be blamed here. We're to be blamed. We don't have an industrial policy. We don't have good workflow. We don't know what to do with the mid-skilled Americans that have been displaced. They deserve a chance to be re-educated, redirected, you know, into jobs and activities that workflow analysis would say, you know what, we're better served giving it to somebody we're going to pay $50,000 a year to than somebody we're going to pay $150,000 or $200,000 a year to. So there's a lot to be said about this. That information should help you kind of formulate your opinions.
Thank you, Nick.
Sure,
Masato.
sure. I fully agree. Thanks, Nick. And maybe I will talk about the rest of the world. And because of Panasonic has over the 200 locations for manufacturing plants, and in China first, and in now Asia, and of course United States as well. But all these countries are competing each other. And then now we are the manufacturing, you know, the numbers of manufacturing plants in China has been decreasing and taken over by the rest of the Asian countries. So how to keep the competitiveness as a nations, as an industry? So this is another question. But this is a reality of the world and the manufacturing industry.
Thank you. We're going to go to this gentleman here. And identify yourself, please.
Sure, my name's Kirk. I work at MCDC here in town. I wanted to return a bit to the question of skills, because we hear that a lot: communication, T-shaped individual, cognitive diversity. And in my lived experience, so many people have those skills, that exact skill set, and they're very good at it. But you don't see it come out in the workplace that much. So when, in tracing the causality, when do we say this is a management problem how does management need to evolve with technology?
Okay.
Who wants to take that one? Chris?
I'll back them up.
Yeah.
I've got an answer to that, too.
Yeah, well, you know, since I'm in management, I actually think that management needs to usually evolve first. We need to lead and be examples of producing those kinds of, the environments that would draw out and amplify those skills. And I don't think management in general has done well at that, particularly kind of top-down hierarchical structures kill innovation. But the world is changing. And I think, you know, if you were a manager listening to this, the more that you look at, for lack of a better word, kind of bottom-up structures, or at least ones that blend the two, and really creating a culture where people can express themselves without harm. And but also you have to have a culture that brings people together through a unified purpose. You know, that's part of what the top-down is now, is what's the unified purpose, and the bottom-up is the cognitive diversity and freedom to think and innovate. And so it is a partnership. But I don't think people are very good at these things. I don't know who you're running into. Well, let me change that. I know a lot of people who think they're really good at it that aren't.
Fair enough.
And I don't mean that confrontationally at all.
No, but it's true. It's the whole answer is it's a failure of leadership. It's not your fault.
We have time for one more question. And remember, there'll be time afterwards as well. Time for one more question, ma'am.
I have
Can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Nora McDougall Collins. I have a business and a CS degree from this institution. And I'd like to figure out a way to close the gap between our schools and you guys. About 100 years ago, when I was in chemistry at Butte High School, it was just another A on my report card until a guy from 3M stood up on our stage and did a presentation and told stories about chemistry with magic happening on the stage. You know, we take the kids and we expect them to buy into the idea of technology without knowing where it's going. They need to see sensors, they need to see all these things. You guys do this every single day. You have stories to tell, and our high school kids. We need you guys in the high schools.
We got it. Nick, I want you to take that one, given your national leadership
So look,
in this
I mean,
space.
National
Thank you.
Engineering Week, we just had it. I don't know who you got here, how you organize yourself, but we ought to be in the middle schools. The middle schools. I mean, the fact of the matter is that underrepresented minorities and young girls are making their minds up in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade about what they're going to be. So if we're going to actually affect outcomes, we've got to be there, helping them understand that, you know, people like you are an engineer, or people like you look like, you know, people who look like them look like engineers. That's what they want to see. One kid asked me once, well, God, if you only all wore the same uniform, it would be easier. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, you have no way of knowing, you know, who an engineer or a scientist is. But, you know, in this country, for good or bad, schools are in our hands. They're in our hands, the local hands. Locally, please jack it up. You need connections. I'll get you connected to the National Engineering Week organization, the IEEE, the Society of Women Engineers, Hispanic engineers, you know, African American engineers. I'll connect you to all of them. Can even connect you to IBM if you could have some business here. If you buy something from IBM, maybe they'd actually show up. That's a different story.
Okay.
But that's how you do that. I know the guy you're talking about. He stood up on my stage too, by the way. And he was just pulling all kinds of strange things out of this soup that he had made. You know, all kinds of plastic things were flying out of there.
This is a middle school student. We need that connection.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we need to conclude here, but first of all, I want to thank the audience for participating and listening and being here tonight. It's a great audience, and I really appreciate your professionalism and your politeness for this distinguished panel. Secondly, I want to thank Nick for your answers and your participation. Masato, thank you so much. And Chris, also for your wonderful answers. Very rich answers, deep response with a wealth of knowledge and experience. These are opportunities. You've had people on this panel literally suggest an offer to plug you into international, national, and local innovative agendas. Not about bits and bytes, but about people and solutions.
That's right, Alex. You're well.
And that's a really important opportunity. I'm going to challenge my alma mater. I'm really going to hammer you guys to do something with that. If you don't, I'll be disappointed, and you know I'll be checking. So with that, I would like to please encourage everybody to give our panel a round of applause, please. And with that, I'd like to, panelists stay here.
Yes.
I'd like to invite our distinguished host
Yep.
this evening to please conclude the evening.
Yeah, thank you. Let's all give them another round of applause. With that said, I do want to echo and thank again Matt and Abe, Mansfield Center, for your partnership in this evening's event. I think the most important takeaway I heard is amidst all the technology, don't forget about the person. Don't forget about the people. So I think that's a great challenge for us to go forward tonight. You're dismissed. Thank you for being here.
You did a great job, Alex. Very well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.